Hey, what's up everyone? It's me, that pixel guy from Instagram. Now lately I've been trudging through my 9 to 5 each day thinking about doing the same thing day in and day out. Year after year, slowly marching my way to retirement as I accidentally shock myself each shift, staring into the dim lights of the windowless lab thinking, is this all there is? Well, the answer's no. It's always been my dream to create something that people can have fun with that could leave a real positive, lasting impact as a bright spot on the world. So I decided to chase my lifelong dream of becoming a game developer. And I've tossed around a lot of different concepts, but the one I keep coming back to is the idea of playing as a monster fighting off the invasive humans that are destroying the natural habitat of the island. Because, too often do we witness, and even worse, take part in the slaughter and genocide of the poor individuals who did nothing to wrong us, trampling over them without a care in the world in pursuit of our own interests. So I thought it'd be a fun twist to have a game where the monsters deal with not only the combative humans, but the pollution and destruction that they bring to the island. I'm envisioning a game similar to Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing, or Stardew Valley, where the player focuses on bettering the island and forming relationships with the monsters there. My first step was just to write out as much as I could about the game. In the past, I've come up with a rough idea, gotten some mechanics working, and reached a point where I'm just like, what now? So I wanted to make sure I fleshed out enough bones of this game to have something with a clear goal in mind as I work. I came up with some starter NPCs, made a list of potential quests, drew out a basic beginning map, and worked out how combat and everything would work. And with all this in mind, I got going on some concept art. Now, as someone with a big pixel art background, this was probably the most natural and fun part of the process for me. Originally, I definitely struggled with this. In previous years, trying to make game art, I felt like I didn't really know what I was doing and was incredibly inconsistent. Doing the daily art stuff on Instagram was definitely a huge confidence booster and really helped me learn at least the basic rules of pixel art. So making this little goblin dude and a few of his friends was pretty easy. I also decided on the combat system pretty early on. I've been a longtime fan of a game called Crypt of the Necrodancer and love their unique rhythm-based movement where when you move, the enemy moves pretty much simultaneously. I think this makes for some unique puzzles and I really enjoy how it creates an elegant dance with the enemies. You have to learn how they move and adapt your combat to them. I've only seen this in a few games and thought it would be fun to put it in a game with a bit more depth to it. Not that Crypt of the Necrodancer isn't deep, it's incredible at what it does and makes for a great rhythm-based action puzzle game. I guess I just mean story depth and investment in the world. I'd like to bring the magic of this combat to a game where you're developing your island and fighting for a noble cause with a deeper story. Working with this concept, I knew they'd need some little hopping animations along with action animations in each direction in case they do some sort of attack or open a door or whatever. So once these were all done, I was ready to start putting things in Unity. And for those of you who don't know, Unity is a wonderful development platform you can use to create your own games. It requires a decent amount of programming knowledge, but luckily years of engineering classes have inadvertently prepared me for this. If you don't know how to program and are still interested in making games, I still recommend it. Just start small and do all the tutorials, you'll pick it up in no time. But anyway, the first thing I did was make it so the player moves around. That was simple enough, and I was pretty satisfied with how the animation looked right off the bat. I just linearly interpolated his movement between grid positions every time the user clicked a button, and told the animation to play. This also of course involved making a grid. Unity has built-in tile map features that let you place things at even intervals, but I wrestled with my blocks looking a little too blocky, I guess. I needed some sort of nice curvy edges without having to place every different tile individually. So I wrote a script that allows each block to look at all the blocks surrounding it, decide which orientation it is, and choose the corresponding sprite. These right here are all the possible sprite combinations, so after loading it in, it worked like a charm. I did the same thing with these neat little walls, and was able to pretty much reuse the whole script from the grass. Now the walls are nice and all, but pretty useless if the player just goes right through them. So I made a script called Movement Manager that keeps track of where everything is on the map. If the player tries to move into an occupied spot, it needs to ask permission from the Movement Manager first. This allowed for easy implementation of enemies and NPCs. I just made them take up space with the Movement Manager as well, and have them move as soon as the player clicks the direction that they choose. I ended up with the ability to move around, and after a bit of work, interaction between different creatures. The player can now bonk into the enemy and deal damage. I swore I'd avoid any effects for now and just focus on mechanics, but sometimes I really just can't resist. I also wanted to make my life easier in the future and added the ability to program in different movement patterns for the enemies without touching the code. This way I can really quickly make a whole bunch of different enemies without much hassle. Now that I had basic movement and interaction, I realized something big was still missing. If this game were to be rhythm-based and I were to truly rip off Crypt of the Necrodancer, I'd need everything's movement to be able to adapt to the speed of the music. It was at this moment I decided maybe I wouldn't want to force musical movement like Necrodancer does. What if we just gain bonuses if we played on beat? but had the option to take a second to think. I think that made for a more relaxing experience I was looking for, where we could focus more on story and island development than straight up combat. So while I think I won't force moving on beat like Necrodancer, I still made all the little animations boop along to the music since I think it's pretty cute. Speaking of music, I unfortunately can't do much more than play basic chords on a guitar. I'd love to develop my music making skills and try to learn, but frankly I don't really have the time right now if I want to finish this game anytime soon. I decided to outsource my music and sound effects to my brother Mike. He's currently pursuing a minor in music at UCSD, so we'll hopefully have some total bangers coming up. But anyways, next up I needed some concept of time. I made a eternal script that just sits there counting along and feeds the information to the HUD so we can see it. I'm not at all attached to this HUD, so bear with me. I know it's kinda weird looking, I just wanted to get proof of concept of a game clock. This also led me to creating a day and night cycle using Unity's post-processing effects. Just like putting a filter on an Instagram post, the software can process the image before it hits the screen. That's how I can change up the colors and give this sort of sunset effect. So with all that out of the way, I rolled into the next feature, the inventory. I'm a big fan of these Terraria style inventories where you can move around items like so, and saw this as a go-to way to equip items. Unlike Terraria though, I won't need the player to be able to move around while equipping things because, well, when they stop moving, everything stops moving. They won't need to evade danger while sorting items because the danger will be waiting patiently. So I got to work on the inventory, knowing that if I didn't implement controller support now, I'd be kicking myself later. So I worked hard to ensure that the user could seamlessly transition between using controller inputs and mouse and keyboard inputs. This was super easy with a cool asset on the Unity asset store called Rewired. I don't usually spring for Unity assets, but this one offers support for pretty much any controller imaginable, and does crazy magic stuff if multiplayer ever becomes something you'd want. I definitely recommend picking it up if you're looking for a nicer alternative to Unity's mediocre input setup. So after a bit of work, I had a nice inventory system where I could move little objects around. I added counters so that multiple items could be stacked and gave them different stack limits. Holding 99 mushrooms may be reasonable, but holding a stack of 99 swords may not be something that we want to be possible, so we won't let those stack. I also put in a little trash can in case the player wants to get rid of something, and made it so enemies drop items when they die. I know it doesn't make sense for a little slime to drop all this junk, I just needed an easy, temporary way for the player to get items for my testing purposes. The last thing I finished before the creation of this video is implementing item usage. I made it so that when you equip a sword, you deal more damage and have a little slash effect. And when you equip a bow and arrow, you can choose a direction and shoot an arrow. The arrow will move whenever you move, making it so you have to predict where the enemy will be and think ahead. I also added the ability to add armor, where you can drag armor to the equipment slots and the clothes will show up on the player, providing defensive bonuses. And lastly, I made the little shrooms edible, providing a bit of health for the player. And that's where I'm at. Now I've been rambling about new features for a hot minute now and thought it'd be nice to take a sort of side note and talk about some of the more behind the scenes stuff. I've tanked a lot of games because free time is so hard to come by. I mean, who wants to spend 8 to 9 hours at work and then come home and work more on a project that can admittedly get pretty frustrating? My strategy that works for me is to force myself to do at least 30 minutes a day, no matter how bad I feel or how tired I am. I found that most of the time I end up doing about 2 hours on average anyway. This was how I got through my 500 Instagram drawings, and that's how I know I'll be able to do this and see it through to the end. I highly recommend it if you're struggling with motivation, even if it's not game development, if it's something completely different, that you rely on discipline instead of motivation and just try to do a small bit every day. Eventually it'll become habit and be a little easier for you. But I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you all for coming to check out the game. If you'd like to stay updated and see future progress, make sure to go find that little bell, like and subscribe to get notified. Or if you never want to see me again, I guess that's cool too. Thanks for sticking around anyway. Oh, and of course, feel free to check out my Instagram if you like pixel art. I post there weekly. Thanks again.